Welcome back to another video. This is JC Diaz. This episode of JC Diaz Uncensored is brought to you by no one. Just me, no sponsors. In today's show, I was sitting here thinking, what really happened to Charlie Kirk? Do we know anything else about what really happened to him? Why is it always when there is a big murder or a mass shooting, we know about that situation within the first 3 or 4 days or the first week, and then after that we don't know anything else about what happened, what was the motive? I wonder what happened. So let's go ahead and start the show, and I'll be back with you in a few minutes. Let's go ahead.
Weeks after the tragic events in Utah that shocked the nation and claimed the life of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, his parents finally made their public appearance. Their quiet appearance at a formal White House ceremony has rekindled the conversation, raising a host of questions. Who are they? Why have they remained silent? And most of all, what does their story reveal about the family behind one of America's most divisive voices? In this video, we delve into what is really known about Charlie Kirk's parents and the quiet but powerful role they played in the aftermath. The memorial service took place on September 21st, 25, inside State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. The atmosphere was filled with a restrained sadness, punctuated by fluorescent lights and silent media cameras. Thousands of people showed up to bid farewell to Charlie Kirk, activist, media personality, and founder of Turning Point USA. Among the crowd, two unlikely faces emerged. According to news reports and photos, Charlie's parents, Robert W. Kirk and Catherine Kirk, sat quietly in the back row. No cameras were pointed at them. No speeches, no press releases, no wreaths bearing the family's name. They arrived quietly, left quietly. And it was that absolute silence that drew more attention than ever. A moment both public and heartbreakingly private, in the midst of a storm in an America that has yet to come to terms with the truth behind that event. One by one, the nation's leading political figures took turns paying their respects, each speech blending national pride with deep grief. Yet, amid the flood of emotion and the bright lights of the media, the Kirk family remained outside the circle, two still figures in a sea of ceremony. There was no nod, no sharing, no attempt to affirm or protect their son's legacy. The silence that surrounded them seemed not a retreat, but a form of control, deliberate, tight, and weighty. Analysts later pointed to the profound symbolism in their choice of behavior. In an age where loss is often turned into a media message, their restraint and silence were a more powerful statement than any words spoken. They did not give interviews, did not appear in the news, and did not allow themselves to be part of the political picture being hastily painted around the incident. According to multiple sources, immediately after the ceremony, when Charlie's allies and supporters talked about continuing his mission, Mr. and Mrs. Kirk quietly left, declining all invitations and contacts from the press. Their absence from the second major memorial, organized by Turning Point USA just a few days later, further intrigues the public. The event brought together President Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, and many other famous faces, becoming a television extravaganza of loyalty to Charlie Kirk's ideology. But his parents, Robert and Catherine Kirk, were completely absent. Not a photo, not a word of confirmation, not a trace that they had ever been there. It was that gap of silence that became the focus of attention, like an unknown number amid countless praise and statements.
I know you're all wondering who is he and why is he here, and I'm asking myself the same question. Charlie Kirk called me his pastor. I called him my friend. I was with Charlie about a little over 2 weeks ago in Korea as he was supporting the persecuted Christians over there.
According to cultural and legal observers, the Kirks' decision to remain silent during this tumultuous period reflects a consistent pattern, a refusal to let personal grief become fodder for political debate. Within that restraint, there exists a structure that seems almost designed, careful, calculated, and intentional, to protect their last vestiges of privacy. What the public saw that day was not the image of two parents crushed in grief, but two people holding fast to the only control they had left, the right to silence. And in an age defined by noise, social media, and the clamor of public opinion, that silence resonated louder than any tribute that rang out in the stadium. Because behind the fire that once symbolized Charlie Kirk, there were two ordinary people, Robert and Catherine Kirk. Before the headlines, before their son's name was splashed across television screens, they were just a small family from the Midwest. Their lives revolved around the familiar rhythms of work, faith, and community, a picture of simple, steady, and honest ambition. And perhaps it was that humble foundation that led them to choose silence over controversy, dignity over the stage, and private truth over public narrative.
And if you are just joining us, we heard from Lindsay Regis, who is there right now, and she said about 200 to 300 people have showed up, and they're on the left there. And we're trying to see who's coming off the plane right now.
According to public records and local news reports, the Kirk family hails from Prospect Heights, a quiet suburb northwest of Chicago. Robert W. Kirk, the father, was an architect who was respected by his peers, not for his loud reputation, but for his meticulousness and precision in his designs. He worked on several high-profile projects during his career, including his work on Trump Tower in New York City. His wife, Catherine Kirk, has pursued a different path: mental health counseling. Her profession is built on listening, understanding, and emotional stability. Together, they struck a rare balance. One built structures of steel and glass, the other built foundations of spirituality and resilience. Friends and neighbors described them as quiet, kind people who were always willing to help their community but never sought the spotlight. There is no record of them being politically active or appearing at partisan events, nor did they ever make any public statements about the ideology their son would later embrace. The Kirks were reportedly moderate, encouraging dialogue and respect for differences, a philosophy that seemed at odds with the raucous world Charlie would later enter. As Charlie Kirk grew up, the peaceful boundaries of his family began to shift. He was a restless, curious child, eager to learn about the outside world, especially drawn to the rhythm and power of conservative radio shows, where Rush Limbaugh's voice rang out as a call of the times. What began as a naive, youthful curiosity gradually turned into a deep conviction, and then became the driving force that shaped the path he would take. Meanwhile, his parents, Robert and Catherine, remained the familiar position of quiet observers. They neither objected nor participated. They let him pursue his passions, but remained on the sidelines, not allowing themselves to be drawn into the noisy whirlpool of fame and politics. As Turning Point USA was born, as Charlie began his national speaking tour, making television appearances and becoming a new cultural icon for young conservatives, his family remained where they had always been, behind the scenes. Initially, their silence was a natural choice, but over time, it became a characteristic, almost a signature of the Kirk family. Sociologists describe Robert and Catherine as the subtle opposites of their son's brilliance, two muted tones in the whirlwind of media glare, a quiet backdrop to a public phenomenon. Their story suggests that before America was riven by powerful voices, there existed a family built on calm, reason, and restraint, qualities now reflected in their steadfast silence. From humble suburban beginnings, the Kirks of Prospect Heights were once just a typical American family. Their hometown, a leafy suburb northwest of Chicago, Illinois, was known for its quality schools, modest homes, and close-knit community. Before the name Kirk made headlines and national debates, it was simply a normal family name, quiet, loving, and believing in the value of stability. It was in this quiet place that Robert and Catherine Kirk raised their only son, Charlie, in a household described by friends as strict but loving. Public records show the Kirks lived a stable, comfortable, middle-class life. Robert worked steadily as an architect, traveling between Prospect Heights and Chicago to work on large-scale design projects. Catherine, meanwhile, skillfully balanced her career as a counselor with her role as a devoted mother, always present at local school events and church activities. They were a friendly, low-key family, waving to neighbors, hosting summer barbecues, and valuing hard work over sensationalism. Charlie attended Wheeling High School, then transferred to Harper Community College near home. Though Those who knew him as a teenager remember a bright, curious, and energetic student who preferred to debate ideas rather than follow conventional lessons. His teachers noted a confidence that bordered on defiance, but behind it was a genuine curiosity about the world. Even as a teenager, Charlie possessed an innate ability to persuade, a trait that would later become his trademark on stage. Questions like, "How do you define fraud?" and "What is the real purpose of college?" were common in his talks, demonstrating an early critical mind and a spirit of challenging the system. At the time, there was no indication that his parents saw what was coming. To them, Charlie's passion for politics was simply a healthy outlet, a way for a young man to find his own voice and identity. Neighbors recall that the Kirks were always modestly proud of their son's accomplishments, especially when he began speaking at youth conferences and college events. But as Charlie's public image grew more widespread and controversial, their suburban tranquility began to unravel. Prospect Heights, once a cozy haven, became the first setting for a much larger story, one about fame, trust, and the limits of privacy. Today, the town remains idyllic, the tree-lined streets, the quiet lawns, and the seemingly unchanged houses. But for Robert and Catherine Kirk, Prospect Heights is no longer home per se. It's a memory where their son's ambitions took root, and where a family that had long been politically aloof began its journey to redefine itself. Building and healing, architect and consultant. Two men, two journeys, parallel in precision and perseverance. Robert W. Kirk spent decades shaping skylines. As a licensed architect in Illinois, his work took him from small suburban residential developments to large commercial projects in downtown Chicago. For him, design was his language and precision was his philosophy. Colleagues describe him as methodical, soft-spoken, but demanding of himself and others. A measure twice, speak once kind of person who believed that work ethic was the true foundation of character, more important than any spotlight or public accolades. His wife, Catherine Kirk, took a different path, but no less thoughtful. A trained counselor, she has dedicated her career to helping people overcome emotional trauma and heal family conflicts. Those who have met her describe a woman who is calm, compassionate, yet pragmatic, who can listen without judgment, yet is steadfast in encouraging personal responsibility. For her, healing comes not from avoidance, but from understanding and confronting. They are two parallel poles, one built with steel and glass, the other with faith and wisdom. And as an echo of the American spirit, a quote Charlie Kirk once shared in a speech still resonates. "Only in America can you say, 'I disagree with the way this country is going,' and then stand up and do something to change it. Dare to take a risk. Dare to take a leap of faith." Together, Robert and Catherine Kirk have built a home where structure meets empathy, where logic meets emotion. Robert's world revolves around drawings, designs, and strict deadlines, a world of pattern, order, and precision. Catherine's world, by contrast, is shaped by conversation, compassion, and deep listening. But at a deeper level, they share a common goal: recovery. Robert seeks recovery through the buildings he creates, and Catherine seeks it through the people she helps. Friends who have visited the Kirk home describe their space as a perfect balance, orderly yet warm. On the bookshelves, miniature architectural models sit next to psychology books, symbolizing two different souls drawn to the same values: understanding and creativity. Dinner time at their home was often a lively conversation that might start with design philosophy and then move seamlessly into the analysis of human behavior. It was in this atmosphere that Charlie Kirk formed his first worldview, one where confidence was encouraged and trust was always reciprocated. From his father, he learned that well-designed systems could withstand pressure. From his mother, he understood that humans, when properly understood, could do the same. Their parenting was neither indulgent nor harsh, but based on an enduring belief. Challenges don't break people, they build character. But as Charlie Kirk's political ambitions begin to grow and overshadow the quiet life his parents once maintained, those foundational values begin to be challenged. The builder and the healer, two people who once shared an ideal of stability and restoration, now watch their son forge a public identity that is both admired and controversial. Yet the imprint of Robert and Catherine's influence remains. A foundation built on design and empathy, on resilience and the art of repair. Two careers, two missions, both aimed at making the world more whole, even as parts of the world around them begin to crack. A moderate home, a radical son. In the Kirk family, politics has never been central to life. Dinnertime conversations revolved around architecture, psychology, or community work, topics more practical than ideological. Robert and Catherine always exercised their civic rights, voting in most elections, but always after careful consideration, never out of party loyalty. Friends described them as socially aware, but politically moderate, the kind of couple who valued civic duty over argument or confrontation. Charlie grew up in a stable, balanced, and largely apolitical environment. But, like all teenagers, teenage curiosity opened the door to new influences. Around age 15, he began listening to conservative radio shows, initially out of a passing interest, but then completely absorbed. Voices like Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity offered something he rarely heard in his family: certainty. They turned vague social feelings into clear language, and turned that language into energy, into action. For a teenager searching for direction and belief, it was a powerful attraction. And perhaps that moment planted the first seed for the path he would later pursue. I think feminism has gone too far in trying to turn women into men, and now its extension is trying to do the opposite, to turn men into women. It was one of Charlie Kirk's first widely circulated quotes, bold, sharp, and provocative. Robert Kirk began to notice his son's growing intensity. He once told a colleague that Charlie likes to argue rather than solve problems. Catherine, as usual, took a calm approach. She encouraged her son to read multiple sources, understand multiple perspectives, and find balance in his arguments. But as Charlie entered high school, his passion for debate grew beyond his parents' control. He found his calling, the art of public speaking. After-school discussions quickly turned into speeches at youth conferences, articles in local media, and then national attention. The Kirks watched the journey with cautious pride. They were delighted as their son's voice resonated, but also worried as it grew sharper by the day. The once curious boy had become a fiery antagonist, a young symbol of neoconservatism. It was a quiet but pivotal moment. A moderate family begot a radical son. The contrast was stark: a father who built to sustain, a mother who healed to reconcile, and a son who thrived on challenge and conflict. To outsiders, it seemed like fate. But to those involved, it felt like a slow but unstoppable drift away from the peaceful values that once surrounded their dinner table. What had once been balanced now tilted toward intensity and argument. And while the Kirks remained proud, they soon realized that the true value of persuasion lay not just in applause, but in distance, when the spotlight was never on them. As Charlie Kirk's name became synonymous with the modern conservative movement, his parents chose the opposite path: silence. While their son's voice rang out on television and in large halls, Robert and Catherine Kirk remained deliberately inconspicuous. No interviews, no statements, no media profiles, no public image. In an age where self-promotion was inevitable, their silence became a silent statement, almost an act of resistance. By public records, neither Robert nor Catherine Kirk uses social media. In a world defined by data and visibility, their digital footprint is almost non-existent. There are no public photos, aside from a few archival architectural documents and a few local community listings. In an age where one's fame often carries the entire family along, the Kirks have remained surprisingly quiet, almost completely hidden in an era of constant announcements, photos, and sharing. Friends in Prospect Heights remember the subtle way Robert and Catherine dodged questions about Charlie. One neighbor recalled, "They're proud, of course, but they don't want to be part of the show." It was a perfect contrast between two worlds, one a bustling life of book tours, political conventions, and live broadcasts, the other a quiet, reserved, and steady life of two quiet people. Charlie Kirk lived in the spotlight. He needed presence. His parents found peace and privacy in the predictability and stability of ordinary days. Their lives continued in near anonymity, defined not by headlines or media trends, but by the quiet rhythms of daily work. Architectural blueprints, counseling sessions, and weekend church services. And while Charlie stood before thousands of people, chanting, "How are we doing, Georgia? This is a historic moment. Who here has voted? Raise your hand." His parents were probably still sitting in the old house in Prospect Heights, where the bright lights of the stage never touched, but the silence still spoke volumes. Observers have long wondered whether the Kirks' bans was a deliberate strategy, or simply an emotional response to a storm so great. Some have suggested it was a carefully drawn line, an attempt to protect the rest of their private lives, while their son's influence and reputation were shrouded in endless controversy. Others believe it was a form of silent protest, an unspoken disagreement with how the world defined Charlie. No statement from them has confirmed this, though. The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in between, a family choosing to keep their distance, not because of a lack of affection, but because exposure had become inevitable. Yet the silence speaks volumes. In a culture where every relationship is documented, shared, and commented on, Robert and Catherine Kirk remain a rare distinction, a reminder that not everyone who reaches fame wants to live in its light. As Charlie Kirk became one of the most prominent figures in national politics, his parents remained architects of silence, choosing steadiness over show, dignity over controversy. Their restraint not only defined them, but also protected them, in a world that constantly demanded explanations about who they were, what they thought, and how they felt. The silence amid the storm. The days after the September 10th incident at Utah Valley University shocked the nation, not just because of the severity of the incident, but also because of its connection to an already controversial name, Kirk. Rumors spread quickly, and comments were fierce. Television stations broadcast footage from the scene, while analysts and media pundits dissected the suspect's personal history, political leanings, and family connections. Kirk's name quickly became the focus of public opinion, spawning countless theories, outrage, and confusion on social media. But amid the chaos of noise, two people remained completely absent: Robert and Catherine Kirk. There was no official statement, no legal representation, no spokesperson. While reporters stood guard outside their gated compound in Glendale, Arizona, their home remained silent, lights off, curtains drawn, and a silence so pervasive it was almost noticeable. A silence that was not an evasion, but the only statement they chose to make to the world. Even as public figures called for explanations or sympathy, the Kirk family chose to remain silent. For some, it was denial; for others, pain hidden. Legal experts say it was a strategic choice, to avoid complicating the investigation or inflaming the controversy. But beneath the layer of caution, the silence carried a deeper resonance. Of a family once known for its modesty and privacy, now caught in a storm of public opinion. Their son's fame had inadvertently thrust the family into the light, and the events of September 10th made them reluctant witnesses to everything they had tried to keep quiet. America waited for a word. They said nothing. In a nation addicted to commentary, their silence became the loudest statement. Rose Garden, White House, October 14th, 25. Charlie Kirk's posthumous Medal of Freedom ceremony. Robert and Catherine Kirk stand in the center, next to Erica Kirk. Music plays, Amazing Grace fills the air. This is their first public appearance since the incident, and like all the time, they still don't say a word. Their silence is the story. Observers describe the moment as haunting, not because of its grandeur, but because of its absolute restraint. Robert Kirk, in a black suit and blue tie, stared straight ahead. Catherine, calm but pale, clasped her hands to her chest. Erica Kirk, her eyes filled with tears, accepted the Medal of Freedom on behalf of her husband. Behind them, dozens of cameras and lenses captured every moment, as if searching for emotion in the silence itself. President Trump described Charlie Kirk as a patriot, a voice of faith and courage. The words were met with thunderous applause, but the Kirk family remained calm, solemn, almost motionless. For them, this was not a ceremony, but a moment where legacy met loss, where national reverence collided with personal grief. In that moment, the White House Rose Garden became a stage for parallel contradictions: glory and emptiness, pride and regret, ideals and humanity. Robert and Catherine Kirk, who had spent their lives avoiding the spotlight, were now completely illuminated, but still remained familiar, quiet, cautious, and measured. When Amazing Grace ended, they turned away without a word, without interviews. Only the two parents stood silently amid the applause, bearing the weight of the nation's gaze, and a pain that no medal could compensate for. As the cameras faded, the sound faded, the question remained. When the noise died down, what was left for those who chose silence over performance? Perhaps the Kirks remind us that real pain does not need an audience, only the truth remembered, quietly, before the noise swallowed all reflection. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts below, and see you in the next part.
And we are back with you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our subscribers. We are right now up to 353 subscribers. Thank you for your support. you keep supporting us. We will continue to bring great content for you guys. Thank you so much. I was wondering in this type of cases, like the Charlie Kirk murder, usually we get a lot of information the first week or 2 weeks of the case after the murder happens. But after that, the authorities go completely silent. We never hear from this case again. And this is not the first time that this happens. Like it happens a lot, but it also happened with the big mass shooting that we had in Las Vegas, when the shooter went up to the hotel and he started shooting down to the crowd that was attending that concert that night. We heard about this mass shooting for about a week and a half, and then after that, complete silence. We didn't hear anything else from it. And same thing with the Charlie Kirk murder. We heard about the Charlie Kirk murder for probably about 2 weeks, and after that, complete silence. We do have some message. We have some small info about the shooter. We know that he was transgender, or he wanted to be a transgender. We found out about some messages on the shells, on the bullets. But after that, have you heard anything else from this case? Like, what really happened? What was the motive? Why if such a case, such a polarizing case, which was literally used for both the right and the left to make it even bigger divide in our country, and it was so polarizing, why haven't we had any more information about what happened that day? We don't have any more information. The authorities have gone silent. And I believe that us as American people, we deserve to know more information. We need to know all the details about what happened that day, just so we can know and prevent, or at least try to prevent more in the future, stuff like that from happening. I was just thinking about how usually stuff like this, we hear about it for the first time for about a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks, depending on the magnitude of the case. But then we never hear about it again. And I don't know. I was just wondering, like, why such a silence? Why not explain the American people what happened, what really happened to Charlie Kirk? What was the motive? What is going to happen with the prisoner? What's going to happen with the suspect? Like, we have some stuff here. Like, we know there was messages on the shell casings, the messages and interviews with family members from crucial parts of the indictment against Robinson, and give some insight as to his state of mind. In addition, investigators have also said that 4 shell casings were found alongside a rifle discovered in a wooded area near the Utah Valley University campus. The shell casings have messages engraved in them, which, prior to Robinson's arrest, were among the only potential clues as to the killer's motive, and had been the subject of much speculation. Now, if we scroll down here, what don't we know, right? Prosecutors in Utah mostly declined to answer questions from the media on Tuesday, and although the state's governor, Spencer Cox, said Robinson had a leftist ideology, there are still gaps in what we know about a possible motive. For instance, it's unclear what specifically Robinson found objectionable about Kirk. It's also unclear how Robinson might have been radicalized and what role his online activities might have had in that process. The authorities have been really quiet about that. Like, we don't know what caused the suspect to get radicalized. we don't know any info about what was so bad about what Charlie Kirk was saying that caused this guy to go in a rampage and go and kill Charlie Kirk. We don't know any of that. They're keeping it to themselves. And I think the American people need to know what's going on. Also, when Gray, the county prosecutor, was asked directly whether transgender activism inspired the shooting, he declined to comment. But why? Why decline to comment? Why? We deserve to know the truth. FBI Director Kash Patel said in a Senate hearing Tuesday that his agency had seen a large uptick in cases involving NVE. I always wonder that why is it that we, in cases like this, there is always a silence. It's like they're trying to keep it. They use part of the event. When these events happen, they use it to create a rhetoric. For example, they use Charlie Kirk's murder to create even a more divide between a country that is already divided. And they use his murder for a rhetoric of division, just to create that. I mean, you saw it all over the news. It was everywhere. People, YouTubers, it was on the news. Everybody was coming up with their own conspiracy theories. Everybody was blaming each other. But after that, we go silence. We really don't know the truth. Like, what really happened to Charlie Kirk? Why? Why was he killed? Who were the people? Some people say that some of his own people were involved in the killing. That now, this is allegedly, right? Allegedly, some people say that some of his own people were involved in the killing. But why don't we have more information about this? What are they hiding? What is the FBI hiding? Why don't they just show the American people what happened? Do we know that there was more people? Was he working by himself? Was the shooter by himself? We don't know that. How long did it take him to get the guns? How long did it take him to prepare? What was the motive behind it? We don't know. We don't know. There's so many gaps in this case. There are so many gaps, and we always wonder, why is it always like that? Why don't we know exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk? But it's funny how when something like this happens, it's used to divide our country. It's one of the weapons used to divide our country even more than what it is. But when it comes to actually providing real evidence or real proof of what happened, everybody stays silent. Nobody says anything. Are we playing games in here? Is this the Hunger Games? This is not the Hunger Games. I would like some clarity. What happened to Charlie Kirk? Me and Charlie Kirk didn't agree. I didn't agree with a lot of the stuff that Charlie Kirk said. But that's not a reason for him to be murdered. We have freedom of speech in this country, and whether we like what he said or not, we deserve to know the truth. What happened to Charlie Kirk? Why the silence? Why not let the American people know? And I know Candace Owens, she's been very vocal about it. Tucker Carlson has been very vocal about it, asking why is there so much silence about what happened to him. Why not tell people? Why not tell the American people? This is what really happened to Charlie Kirk. This is the motive. This is how the suspect was working. This is where he got the guns. This is how much time he took to prepare for the crime. this is who he was working with or whether he was working by himself. What was the real motive for the Charlie Kirk suspect murder? What was the real motive for him to go and kill Charlie Kirk? I think the American people deserve to know what happened, especially because this murder was used and it was a polarizing event, and it was used to further, by both parties, by both sides, the left and the right, it was used by both sides to create an even bigger divide than what we already have in this country. So since it was used to divide us even more, I believe that we deserve, the American people, we deserve to know exactly more details of what happened to Charlie Kirk. I believe that we need to know more. We need to know all the details. And I believe the FBI should release it, should release the files, and they should say, okay, this is exactly what happened. This is what this guy was thinking, where he bought the guns, and all the details that are missing, which I think they are a lot, you know? And it's not only the Charlie Kirk thing, it's every mass shooting. Haven't you noticed how every mass shooting, we know about it for about a week and then it completely disappears? You never hear from that mass shooting anymore. Is it something they're hiding? Was it staged? I think we just deserve to know. Obviously, it wasn't staged, but that's one of the questions because we never know exactly what happened. So that's where the conspiracy theories start appearing. When you don't show and give the people exactly the events that caused the murders of people, especially someone important like Charlie Kirk, when you don't come out with the details, when the authorities don't come out and show the actual details of the investigation, of what happened what was the reason behind the murder of an important person, that's when the conspiracy theories start and everybody starts coming up with their own conclusions because we don't have the actual information. And when we don't have the actual information, we will start making up our own information, our own conclusions. And most of the times, we're not even right. But I can understand why people will start coming up with their own conclusions when you have authorities that you cannot trust. When you have authorities that don't tell us the whole truth. When we have authorities that don't tell us, hey, this is what happened with this man. And I think we need to release this file so the American people can know. I'm not going at anybody. I'm just saying I believe the American people deserve to know what happened to Charlie Kirk. What's the reason, the details behind why this guy did what he did, the suspect, the shooter. What is the reason? We need to know the details. That's all. I'm just wondering why these mass shootings, why when something important like this happens, an event like this happens, we only hear about it for the first week or 2 weeks, but then after that, gone. Nobody hears about it anymore. Why? Why are they hiding? Don't you guys wonder the same? Don't you guys think that we need to know what happened? We need to know all the details? I think we do. I think we do. I think we do. Especially when a case was so polarizing that it created a bigger even divide. This case was so polarizing that even it created a fact that Charlie Kirk's company, you know, his people are having an alternate to the Super Bowl halftime show. That's how big a divide this created. So you don't think that we, the American people, deserve to know all the details of what happened to Charlie Kirk? I believe so. I think Candace Owens believes so. I think Tucker Carlson believes so. I think we all believe so. I think we all deserve to know what happened to Charlie Kirk. And we shouldn't be wondering. We shouldn't be sitting in our couches at home wondering, man, what happened to Charlie Kirk? Like, what was the motive? We haven't heard anything else from the case. That's just something for you guys to keep in mind. And it was something that was in my mind. And I had to talk to you guys about it. I hope you guys like this video. Keep the conversation going. Hit like, share, and subscribe. This is JC Diaz Uncensored. I'll see you guys on the next video. And think about this. What really happened to Charlie Kirk? Do we have more details? Why don't we have more details? We do have some of them, but not all the details. So hit like, share, and subscribe. This is JC Diaz Uncensored. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you guys. Peace.